take everybody through a little run-through of our new NavNet 3D system that we're introducing here for the first time anywhere in the world this week at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. It's introducing some new revolutionary technology to the marine electronics industry that nobody's really seen before in any kind of marine electronics product, whether it's be from Furuno or anybody else. And we have a couple new technologies that we want to discuss and touch on here during the presentation. The first one is a technology that we call time zero. And the reason we call it time zero is because when you're using a traditional chart plotter and you are zooming in, zooming out, or panning around, you traditionally have to wait for the screen to redraw itself and then go to the next memory block. You see an hourglass and so forth. That situation is eliminated with the time zero format. What you'll see here, I have it up on the plasma screen and down here on the display, is I'm looking at a 3,000 mile range base map. You'll notice when I zoom in on the government cut area in Miami, you'll see that the chart never leaves the screen. It's called time zero because the redraw time is indeed zero. What you'll also notice is I change ranges, that the appropriate chart for the range scale I've selected automatically comes up on the screen. Seamlessly fading in and out are the charts that are applicable for the range that I've chosen. Not only is this beneficial when we're zooming in and zooming out, but the same thing occurs on traditional plots when you pan around and explore the chart. You have to wait for the next part of the chart to redraw. That is gone as well with time zero, in the sense that you'll notice as I scroll around the screen here, the chart never leaves the screen. I can zoom in, zoom out while I'm panning, and we never see any delay or blockiness or hourglass waiting for redraw of the chart at all. Okay? Once I'm done exploring, if I kind of lose my orientation of where my vessel is, I have a ship button right in the middle of the scroll pad. I hit ship, and I'm immediately returned to my vessel position. Talk about the charts that you see here for a moment. What you're seeing right here is actually a raster chart image. All NavNet 3D systems are preloaded with all of the official NOAA US raster charts and NOAA vector charts for the US, for the entire United States. They're preloaded into the system, and we can seamlessly change between the two chart formats. You'll notice this is a raster chart. You can simply go into my chart mode and select vector, and you notice that the raster goes away and the vector chart seamlessly comes into the picture. I'm going to change back, and you see the raster chart again appear. For areas outside of the US, you can purchase the data, the chart data, and upload it to the system. And we'll have cartography for areas outside of the US as well, but preloaded data comes for the entire US in the NOAA chart database. We're also providing a lot of information that's going to enhance the nautical chart that you're looking at and make it easier and more recognizable of the areas that you're navigating in. I'll show you the most important piece of information is that we've added very high-resolution, detailed satellite photo imagery to the system. So you notice when I overlay the satellite photos, all of a sudden I get a more of a real-world scenario of what's around me. I see a lot of detailed information on land and around me here. Now, some other products have introduced satellite photo overlay. It's not new, but the way that Furuno presents it is a totally new technique. It's called photo fusion, and I'll briefly explain what that is. Most products that overlay satellite photos kind of give you an all or nothing scenario, meaning I overlay the photo and then I have to start making it transparent so I can actually see the chart. But then I lose some detail on the land. It kind of becomes murky. A lot of times it's not very high resolution data. There's other techniques that are used that allow me to say, okay, I only want to see photo data on land and nothing on the water, but that's not really good because there is good photographic information available on the water, and we'll show you why that is. What we do with photo fusion in NavNet 3D is that by the depth, according to the depth information that we have programmed into the system, we determine how we want to present you with the photo. So on land at zero depth, you'll notice that we have a very high-res detailed image with no transparency because we want to see full detail on land. However, in this area, we're in some shallow water, I start seeing that I am merging or fusing the chart with the photo data. So not only do I see the chart information, but I see the structural data information from the photo that actually can be beneficial for navigating or in some cases fishing. But in areas when we get to deeper levels, like 20 feet and below, the photographic information is kind of useless because all I see is the water surface. Or in busy areas like this, the photo, when it was snapped, there were a lot of boats in that area, and you see boats and wakes and so forth, and that kind of can be disorienting to a navigator. So we actually remove the photo information and allow you to see the valuable chart information untouched and untouched by the photo imagery that we don't need by just seeing water in that particular zone. So that's the concept of photo fusion. Full, detailed photos on land, partially merged on the water so we can see structural information in shallow depths, and completely removed and allowing you to see exclusive chart data in the deeper areas where you don't need to see the photo at all. I'm going to take my vessel now. I'm currently in north up mode. I'm going to switch over to a heading up mode to give you a view here. Now we call the product NavNet 3D, and we're going to show you the 3D capability in a moment, but I'll show you another overlay capability that we have as well that enhances your navigational capabilities, and we call that depth shading. Once again, we have depth data programmed into the system. So what we have the capability to do is overlay this depth shading that gives me a quick, easy graphical reference of the depth scenario around my vessel. So I can now easily recognize that the shallow areas are in my red and yellow colors, and my deeper areas are in greens and blues. We can actually go into the menu and adjust that scale to the draft of your vessel, so you can create a real depth safety scenario with the depth information around your vessel. And I don't have to look around at specific spot soundings or contour lines. I have a visual reference very easily available to see my depth situation. This is another layer that I can simply go into the menu, turn on, turn off at will. Now we call the system NavNet 3D for a reason, because for the first time ever you're actually going to be able to actually view and navigate with official charts in a 3D mode. And I simply do that by hitting my 3D button, and now I've entered a 3D world here. And when I say it's real-time 3D is because other systems that present 3D will actually show you a graphical reference or rendering of an area in 3D, but not the actual official chart. Additionally, when you see those renderings, you can't lay down waypoints, routes, you can't do actual navigation. Those pictures are only for reference. We're allowing you with NavNet 3D for the first time to actually really navigate in 3D with the official charts. And I'll show you those capabilities in a moment. But also to talk about the benefit of 3D, other than the fact that it looks really cool, which it does, we'll go back into the top-down mode, and what you'll see is in a traditional plotter picture, when I'm zoomed in, I have a lot of great detail right around my vessel, but I don't really have any information about what's coming up, especially in an unfamiliar area. It would be helpful to have that. When I go into the 3D mode, you'll notice in the same screen area now, I still have the best of both because I have that close-in detailed information, but at the same time I have this great look forward as to what's upcoming with my navigational situation. Just as we scrolled and panned around in 2D, you'll notice I can do the same thing in 3D without any delay, without any redraw time at all, and quickly return to my ship's position very simply. Now, as I stated a couple moments ago, we can also really use this to navigate and set up our navigational planning. So the first thing that you may want to do is somebody says, how do I quickly go to a quick point and shoot? I want to go from my boat to, let's say, this position down here. I simply put my cursor in that location, hit the go-to button, my vessel reorientates itself, and I automatically see myself going from that point to the new point upcoming. I'll do that again quickly so you can see what I'm talking about again. Choose my point, you see my cursor in this location, hit go-to, immediately the picture reorientates itself, and I'm on my way to that particular go-to point. Very simple. The next thing we'll do is show you how to draw a quick route and how to lay down a route and edit a route, which is something that you can't do in most other 3D systems. I pick my start point, I simply hit the route button, and now I have a line to start with, and I just start picking my points, whether I'm using a mouse, which I'll talk about in a bit, or my keyboard here. I select my first point, second point, and I can actually see a numeric reference by bringing on my data box, so I see range and bearing and my cursor position up here. And I just keep laying down points. It's very nice to do this in the 3D mode because I can see actually a reference of the channel and all the surrounding areas while I'm doing the points. Once I lay down a few points, I can go back to the original screen, and now I see my route line there. And now here's how easy it is to edit a route. I can simply take my cursor, highlight the route, right-click on it, and I can say I want to insert a point at that location. So now I have the capability to insert a new point, and I've just done that. Very simple. If I want to take an existing point that's in the route and move it, let's say, I choose move, and I take that point, and I've now very simply moved that point in the route. So it's very easy to lay down a route and to edit a route in NavNet 3D in both a traditional 2-dimensional mode and a 3D mode as well. Once again, to take a look at the 2D for a second, in this route right now, I only have the ability to see like one leg of the route. When I go into 3D, notice in the same screen area, I can see virtually 3/4 of the route that I laid down. So it's very nice to reference where you're navigating. Now we've looked at satellite overlays, depth shading, raster and vector charts. The next thing we want to show you is the ability to overlay radar data on the chart. We've had the capability to do radar overlay in the past, but not like you're going to see it right now. NavNet 3D is also being introduced with a whole new line of digital radar sensors. These are ultra-high definition radar pictures. When we did some testing up in the Cape Cod Canal, we were able to actually capture live radar video, which we can replay for you now. This is not a synthetic radar picture. It's actually captured radar data that we're going to show you. We did it up in Cape Cod. Since our chart's in Miami, I'm going to hit our ship button, which I also call our transporter, send us from Miami up to Cape Cod in a matter of seconds. Also, since we've been looking at raster charts so far, let's change it up a bit and take a look at what the vector charts look like in this area. So you notice I'm going to choose vector. Immediately my vector chart loads on the screen. You'll notice that I have my satellite photos still fused in with the vector chart image. I have the same redraw and time zero smooth capabilities. And now I'm going to go into my overlay mode and actually select radar. And now for the first time you're seeing radar presented in a 3D realm as well. I'm going to switch it to 2D for a second so you can actually see how well the radar imagery is lining up with the coastline in this particular area and how well it lines up. When you have a stable heading reference, how well these radar targets line up with the navigational aids that are out there in the channel. So I see these 2 nav aids and I can tell very clearly that this is a boat that's actually out there. So now, in addition to showing charts, satellite photos, and a 3D world, I can also see the radar videos. I can see targets, vessels, and other potential obstructions that are in front of me, all in this real nice mode. You can see my vessel's actually turning around now, and I'm on my way back on this radar picture. Now we've been looking at kind of an aerial view in 3D, but I also have the capability to go in and customize the view I have, and I do that with my pan and tilt. Excuse me. Now I can actually show you graphical reference, and here you can see that not only are the satellite photos showing me the data, but I can actually see the topography around me. So I can see off to the left in a hill. So if I'm looking out on my boat to the left, I'm going to see exactly this situation around me, and I can actually really present a real-world scenario of the navigational area that I'm in. And I can come around, I can take a preview. You can look at your boat from literally any angle. You can still see that my radar data is overlaid on there, and everything is relative to my boat's position. You can see also we have a very detailed graphical icon of your own vessel. You can choose that from the menu system. Hopefully that's a Furuno radar on that boat. You can see I can zoom out and once again get a really good graphical image of the whole surrounding area. If I want to go back to my aerial view, simply push the button here and I'm back in there. Now, some people look at this picture and say, wow, this is fantastic, you know, 3D, overlays, satellite photos, but it can be a little intense maybe at first to change over to this new type of navigating. So you might want to kind of transition into it, and we allow you to do that by going into a split screen mode. So in this mode, I'm going to actually take a look at my 3D world on this side, where I have my vessel and my overlay and the satellite photos and radar and all that stuff. And then on this side of the screen, you see I've brought up a traditional raster chart image in a top-down 2D mode with no overlay, no obstructions or anything. So it'll allow me kind of to transition between the two. Notice this is also probably one of the first times you'll see a system that's presenting both vector and raster charts simultaneously and able to control them. The other great thing when you're in this mode, because I have 2 orientations here, you'll notice I have what's called a ghost cursor. So if my cursor's on this side of the screen and I want to reference a particular point, you see on this side of the screen I have this red X that's actually ghosting what I'm doing over here. So I always have a point of reference. Same thing if I switch over to here, now my ghost cursor moves on to the left side of the screen. So I always have a visual, physical reference of the points that are up ahead. So for instance, if I go up here, and I go on this mark, and I go out here and zoom out a little bit, you'll notice if I put my cursor on that marker there, it references this radar target right here. So you always have a good perspective of where you're at and where you're going with NavNet 3D. While we're looking at the radar image, we'll talk a little bit more about the radar for a moment. In addition to this high definition picture that you're seeing, which is actually in an auto mode, which is what we call an advanced adaptive auto mode. A lot of systems that have auto modes, you have to choose rough sea mode or harbor mode. We don't do any of that. You just put it in auto, and based upon the conditions that the radar is receiving, it's going to adapt itself and automatically present a picture like this. This is an undoctored auto mode picture that you're seeing here that we recorded on Cape Cod Canal. Additionally, another new feature that we've incorporated into the radar is real-time dual-range radar. I'll show you what we mean by that. Here I have a picture that shows two radar images simultaneously. Normally to see that, you got to have two radar antennas working. In this case, with NavNet 3D, it's not the case because we have a new technique where we are simultaneously transmitting and receiving on both short and long ranges. So you can actually see two radar images. One I have at a close-in range at a quarter mile. The other one I have out at a farther range so I can get a more wide scenario, and I can go out to mile, mile and a half, whatever my choice is. Additionally, another benefit of this would be, say, for a fishing application, where you can take one radar picture, crank up the gain, and make some other filter adjustments for bird detection, while you leave the other radar picture alone in auto mode for your navigational system. So it really is like having two radars on your boat, but you're doing it all with one antenna. Just a little bit about the antennas with NavNet 3D. These are digital sensors now, and they're Ethernet network sensors. So instead of having a traditional big radar cable, you now have an Ethernet and power cable just running down. We've also installed in the radar antenna an NMEA 2000 connection point. So if you install a new device like an NMEA 2000 GPS or weather station or something like that, rather than having to run a cable all the way down, I can actually connect it into the radar antenna, and then that information is actually distributed through the network that's coming down from the radar. So it's quite a nice idea. Just a couple more things before we close out. I'm going to go into the display mode here and show you some of the other pictures that we have and how we have the capability to custom build pictures. You see I have this kind of carousel on here, and this is how I just select which display I want, and also have the ability to go in and customize the display. I'm going to show you how to custom build a page very quickly. I go into this page builder. I choose on the left-hand side, do I want a single screen, or do I want to split 2 ways, 3 ways? Let's say I want a triple screen. I select that, and now along the bottom I decide, do I want radar, sounder? In this case I'm going to choose a plotter. And up here I'm going to put an external video source, and maybe down below my sounder. So you can see now I've custom built this page, and it's totally available for me. Now if I hit display mode, you'll notice here is that page, and you can actually customize every single one of these. I can show as few as 5 at one time, or as many as 10. It's totally up to you and your preference. Go back into that picture for a second and show you what we have here, because we have another capability that's quite nice in NavNet 3D. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see that I have external video coming into the system. And we've been able to do external video in the past with NTSC, just plug in a DVD player or a video camera or something like that. And we still have that capability with up to 4 inputs in the BB and inputs in our MFDs as well. But we now have also introduced the capability to install IP cameras. And these cameras on the end of the booth you see here are IP cameras. And those provide a couple of new benefits. Traditionally with NTSC video, I plug it into one source and that's it. I can't network the video. I would have to physically split it, amplify it, do all these things. An IP camera is a network sensor. So once it's brought into the network, you can distribute that video throughout the system to any display in the system. Additionally, not only can we network it, but we can also control it with these Axis IP cameras that you see here. So I have this camera image, I can take my cursor, select a location, and actually zoom in on that location. I can use my keyboard to zoom out. I can pan that camera image. I can tilt it up and down. So think about the application of having an engine room monitoring camera, security cameras, or any type of camera that you may want to utilize in the system. Additionally, if I have multiple video sources, I can actually choose to cycle through the different inputs I have. So you'll notice every several seconds, I'm going to switch from one camera. Here's a thermal imaging camera that we have connected to the system, and then you'll see another IP camera coming, and you can customize that cycle to your preference. The last thing I'm going to cover is the user interface that we use with NavNet 3D. and we call it the roto key. And the reason we call it a roto key is because we're combining the capabilities of a traditional rotary knob with traditional soft keys that we have on a lot of our products, and you see on a lot of products in the market. Those are great interfaces, but there are some limitations, and I'll briefly explain them. When you have a smaller display on a smaller boat and you're bouncing around a lot, it can be quite difficult to actually try to find the key you want to hit and stay stable. Same thing with the touchscreen. If you're trying to use the touchscreen and you're bouncing around, it's not very easy. It would be much nicer to be able to anchor my hand in one location and operate the entire system from that location. On a larger system, a black box system, there's a further limitation in the sense that there are no soft keys because I'm using an external monitor. So that creates a situation where the user has to look at the screen and then find a key that they want to reference, whether it's color-coded or alpha-coded. That's a lot of work to do. The roto key removes all of that in the sense that I go and anchor my hand at this one location where the rotary knob is, and as soon as I begin turning the knob, you'll notice that I have an active dynamic set of soft keys right on the screen. So now I have complete control of the system, and I can totally operate the system without ever looking away from the screen with the roto key. I simply rotate it, press it down to make my selection, and there I'm making my change. So you can see I totally can control the system with the roto key. Don't have to look and search for keys. Even if I'm bouncing around the boat, I've anchored my hand in one location. It's fantastic. Additionally, every NavNet 3D system is equipped with a USB port. So I can simply go and get an RF wireless mouse. As long as it has a wheel on it that's clickable, you'll notice that I can actually use the wheel to control my roto key. So I can sit down at a remote location and control the entire roto key system. I can also use it for my cursor control as well, make screen selections. So I have actually remote management with the RF mouse, not proprietary. USB, plug it in and you're ready to go. Same thing if I want to enter a lot of data. Let's say I want to set up the system for the first time and I'm putting in a ton of waypoints I've saved from another system, and I'll have some intense data entry. Off-the-shelf wireless keyboard that you can plug into the USB port. Other companies have a wireless keyboard, it's proprietary, $500, $600, whatever. Not necessary with NavNet 3D. Go buy a $40 keyboard at Staples or Office Depot, plug it in and you're good to go. You'll notice that these are also operating simultaneously in the system. So here's my keyboard running on the system, my mouse, and my actual NavNet 3D keyboard can all coexist. So whatever user interface you want to use, you're welcome to do it without having any proprietary devices that you have to spend a lot of extra money on. The last thing I'm going to touch on is the menu interface and some of the capabilities of that. I'm just going to switch my chart back to raster for a moment. I'll lay down a point real quickly just to demonstrate what I'm talking about. I'm going to go into my waypoint list, for instance. What you'll notice with NavNet 3D is, in addition to being able to see my waypoint list here, whatever menu item I'm in, I actually give you a preview. So if I'm going to change something in the radar, I have a preview of the radar screen. If I'm going to change something with reference to my waypoints, I have kind of a mini plotter or a preview of my plotter screen. I can zoom in and zoom out and take a look at it. You'll see a list of waypoints here. I can preview them. So I'm currently in Cape Cod Canal, but let's say I want to take a look at a point in San Francisco. I simply click on it, and there I am right into San Francisco looking at that waypoint. Let's say I want to take a look at a point up in Seattle. Click it there, and I'm there. Back on the East Coast. You see it bouncing around. The redraw time that's the time zero technology taking over. But most people name their waypoints like this by location, so they have a reference to know where their point is. But with this preview mode, it's not really necessary. You see I have a waypoint here called point 6. I don't know where that is, but I don't need to, because as soon as I click on it, I can see it's there in Cape Cod. But once I find the point that I want to go to, let's say this is Miami point, I say find on map, it will exit the menu automatically, send us back down to Miami where we started a few minutes ago, and we're good to go. So this kind of just touches the surface of the capabilities of NavNet 3D, and we have a lot of other capabilities. We can overlay serious weather information onto the system. The system has a 30 target built-in ARPA. We can overlay AIS targets on both the plotter and the radar. There's a lot of other capabilities we don't have time to cover in this presentation today, but I have literature available for everybody. We've also just launched a new website called navnet.com. You can go there. There's full downloadable details, specifications, tutorial movies, a lot of active content that I invite you to go take a look at. And for everybody paying attention for a long while here, you deserve something for listening to me all this time. So we have some free t-shirts. Eric will help you out with your sizes and so forth, and I really thank everybody for their attention. Thank you.
Thank you. から